Imagine you're trying to strap a supersonic jet engine onto a wooden wagon.
Oh, that sounds like a terrible idea.
Right. Because the engine itself is this absolute marvel of engineering and it works flawlessly. But the second you fire it up, the wagon just like vibrates violently.
Yeah, the wheels crack, you don't actually go anywhere.
Exactly. You just generate a lot of noise, a ton of smoke, and inevitably things just start breaking apart.
Well, I mean, that perfectly captures the current state of artificial intelligence in the corporate world right now.
Yeah, it really does.
We possess these incredibly sophisticated tools, the jet engines, but the organizational structures we're attaching them to are fundamentally buckling under the pressure. The chassis just wasn't built for this kind of speed.
So, welcome to this deep dive. Whether you are a senior leader trying to keep your organization afloat, a middle manager caught in the crossfire, or just an employee looking at your workflow and wondering about your job security, you are in the right place. We are going to explore why the AI revolution isn't delivering on its massive financial promises, and how this whole dynamic is shifting the daily reality for every single level of the workforce.
It's a huge shift. Yeah.
But hey, before we get into the mechanisms behind all of this, if you want more thought-provoking conversations about the world of work, make sure to subscribe to the Contrarian HR on Substack.
Yes, highly recommend it.
We have hundreds of in-depth articles on there. You can also find us on Spotify and YouTube. And definitely check out the Contrarian HR on TikTok, where we tackle these same critically important topics, just with a slightly lighter tone.
It's really a phenomenal community for anyone trying to navigate this chaotic modern workplace, regardless of where you sit on the corporate ladder.
Absolutely. Okay, let's unpack this. Looking at our primary source today, which is Gallup's State of the Global Workplace 2026 report, specifically, we're looking at the human side of the AI revolution.
Right.
The financial disconnect here is just glaring. I mean, we're looking at a mountain of data pointing to an almost universal failure to turn AI potential into actual profit.
It's staggering when you look at the numbers.
It really is. For instance, there's a recent MIT study that analyzed enterprise AI investment. They found that companies have dropped $40 billion into this space.
20 billion.
$40 billion. Yet, effectively every single organization in that study reported zero measurable impact on their bottom line.
And we see that mirrored in the broader executive sentiment, too.
Yeah.
The National Bureau of Economic Research, they surveyed thousands of global executives. And the vast majority see absolutely no effect on labor productivity from AI over the past few years.
Wait, really? None at all?
Basically none, because there's this deeply ingrained corporate expectation that when you buy software, you just deploy it and productivity instantly scales up.
Like flipping a switch.
Right. But AI requires a fundamental behavioral shift, not just like a standard software installation.
Yeah.
Gallup's own data backs this up too. Only 12% of employees strongly agree that AI has actually transformed how work gets done in their organization.
Wow, just 12%. So almost every company bought the tool, but effectively nobody is making money from it.
Exactly.
It sounds like corporate leadership bought a fleet of Formula One race cars, but handed the keys to employees without teaching anyone how to drive.
That is a perfect analogy. What's fascinating here is where that breakdown actually happens. If a large language model can write code in 10 seconds or summarize a massive legal brief instantly, you have to ask, where is the friction?
Yeah, why isn't the work getting done faster?
Well, the friction lives entirely in the middle layer of the organization. OpenAI's own 2025 enterprise report states this really plainly. The constraint is no longer the technology itself.
Okay.
The constraint is organizational readiness and human implementation. I mean, a highly advanced neural network cannot adopt itself into a team's workflow.
Right, it can't just mandate its own use.
Exactly. It requires a human being to orchestrate that integration.
Yeah.
And historically, that responsibility falls squarely on the manager.
Which, I mean, makes sense in theory, but if we put ourselves in the shoes of a frontline employee right now, the reality looks very different.
Oh, entirely different.
Because if leadership rolls out a new AI platform tomorrow, it's not enough for a manager to just forward a Slack link and say, hey, use this.
No, that never works.
Right. Successful implementation means a manager has to sit down, painstakingly audit the team's workflow, identify a specific bottleneck, and then actually take the professional risk of changing the standard operating procedure.
And Taking that risk is the critical component here. Academic research from Stanford and Harvard Business School has consistently shown this. Management practices dictate a massive portion of how technology impacts productivity.
So it's not about the tech itself.
No, winning the AI revolution isn't about deploying the smartest bot. It is about leading the human beings who have to rethink their entire professional routines.
Okay, so since successful AI adoption requires managers to meticulously audit and redesign these workflows, we kind of have to look at the current psychological and professional state of those managers.
We do. And it's not a pretty picture.
Yeah, are they even capable of doing this right now? Looking at the Gallup data, the answer is just a resounding no. Managers are fundamentally drowning.
They really are.
Yeah.
Global employee engagement has dropped for the second consecutive year. It's down to 20% now.
Wow.
Yeah, that's its lowest since 2020. It's down from a peak of 23% in 2022.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. What's happening to the managers specifically within that decline? Because historically, there was always an engagement premium for managers, right?
Exactly. They always reported higher engagement than the people they led. They had more autonomy, better pay, a closer connection to the company's mission. But that premium is completely dead now.
The engagement premium is just gone.
Gone. Manager engagement has plummeted by 9 points since 2022. It's sitting at just 22% in 2025. They are now barely more engaged than the frontline workers.
The structural reasons behind this collapse are just fascinating, especially when you look at the case study the report highlights regarding the IT sector in India.
Oh yeah, the India IT sector example is very telling.
AI adoption began accelerating there, and executive leadership reacted exactly how you would expect, honestly. They saw an opportunity to make the company leaner, so they slowed down hiring and started heavily cutting mid-level and senior roles.
Because from an executive suite perspective, cutting middle management always looks like an immediate win on a quarterly earnings report, right?
Right, it cuts overhead immediately.
It reduces overhead, it flattens the hierarchy, but it functionally destroys the company's ability to adapt to new technology.
Because the middle manager is the translator between the executive vision and the frontline reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you remove that translator, the whole system breaks.
Think about the employee experience for the managers who actually survived those layoffs. They went from managing, say, 5 people to suddenly managing 20 people. Their span of control just exploded.
And when a manager is stretched that thin, they stop being a coach or a mentor. They become a glorified traffic cop.
A traffic cop, yes. When your entire Tuesday is spent frantically approving PTO requests, mediating minor disputes, and putting out operational fires, you physically lack the mental bandwidth to figure out how to integrate a complex AI tool.
Right, you can't rethink a workflow when you're just trying to survive your inbox. And that lack of bandwidth erodes any potential productivity gains. If engagement is basically a measure of readiness for change, the global workforce is fundamentally unready.
But there is a little bit of hope in the data, right?
There is, yeah. In organizations that Gallup defines as best practice, manager engagement remains remarkably high at 79%.
79%. That's a massive difference.
It's huge. It proves that when companies actively manage that span of control and provide structural support, managers can thrive. But for the vast majority of the workforce, that level of support is just non-existent.
And when managers are forced to act as traffic cops instead of coaches, it doesn't just stall corporate productivity, it creates a psychological vacuum for the employee.
Oh, absolutely.
They're left entirely alone to figure out a terrifying, rapidly evolving technology, which immediately breeds anxiety.
AI anxiety is very real right now. 18% of U.S. employees genuinely believe their job will be eliminated by AI in the next 5 years.
13%.
Yeah, and if you work in finance or insurance, that jumps to 32%.
Yeah.
And the tech sector itself, it's 31%. Nearly a third of the workforce in those industries is looking at the clock, feeling incredibly insecure.
It's a highly emotional ecosystem, and ironically, the group suffering the most complex emotional toll in this chaotic environment is the leadership class itself.
Yes, the paradox of the leader. This is such a crucial concept.
Yeah, explain that, because the data here is wild. When researchers ask senior leaders to evaluate their lives overall, which is a metric for general thriving, these leaders report the highest scores. Globally, overall thriving is up to 34% for them.
Right, they state their lives are going very well.
Wait, how can someone report that they are thriving in life but admit they spent their entire Tuesday feeling angry, stressed, and lonely? That seems completely contradictory.
I love this question. So it comes down to the psychological distinction between the reflective self and the experiencing self.
Okay.
Your reflective self is how you view your life overall. It's the VP looking at their status, their great salary, their title, and saying, yeah, I am thriving.
The resume version of their life.
Exactly. But the experiencing self is how that VP actually felt on a random Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon. And compared to individual contributors, leaders are much more likely to report experiencing a lot of negative emotions the previous day.
Like what kind of emotions?
Well, the data shows they are significantly more likely to report a lot of stress, which is up 7 points for them. Anger is up 12 points, sadness is up 11 points, and loneliness is up 10 points compared to individual contributors.
So they have this high overall life evaluation, but their actual nervous system is basically on fire all day.
Yes, because at 2 p.m. on that Tuesday, they were absorbing the emotional friction of an exhausted workforce, dealing with frustrated clients, and carrying the collective anxiety of a whole organization.
And because they sit higher up on the org chart, they just have fewer peers to confide in, which totally explains that massive spike in daily loneliness. They're carrying the weight of the AI transition, but doing it completely alone.
But the data also reveals a powerful defense mechanism against this toll. When managers are genuinely engaged, they experience those negative emotions at much lower rates. In fact, engaged managers are 14 points more likely to be thriving.
So engagement acts as a psychological shield.
Exactly. It protects their mental health while maintaining that high overall life evaluation.
Which brings us to the core question, right? How do we build that engagement and fix this massive implementation failure? What does a manager actually supporting AI look like on the ground?
Because the data shows a virtually perfect correlation here.
Yeah, the multiplier effect is staggering. When an employee feels their manager actively supports their use of AI, they are 98.7 times more likely to agree that AI transformed their work.
98.7 times. That is not a typo in the report.
And they're 97.4 times more likely to agree. It gives them opportunities to do what they do best. But we have to define what support actually means in this context.
Right. Support is not a manager sending a Slack message saying, you should try using ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's just delegation.
Real support is risk absorption. It's a manager telling an employee, I want you to spend the next 3 days experimenting with this new tool. If the experiment fails and the report is late, I will take the blame.
Well, explain it to the director.
Exactly. That psychological safety is what allows innovation to happen.
But the tragedy is that less than a third of U.S. employees actually feel that kind of protective support from their leadership.
And it's even lower in other places. Only 21% in Germany feel that support, for example.
So what does this all mean? As we look at why that support is missing, we have to acknowledge that a worker's reality isn't just shaped by the tech they use. It's heavily dictated by their cultural and geographic context.
No, absolutely. The regional data in the report makes it very clear that you cannot roll out a monolithic global AI strategy. Let's do a rapid-fire tour of the global regions to show you what I mean.
Yeah, let's look at the U.S. and Canada first.
So in the U.S. and Canada, you see high engagement, around 31%, but massive daily stress. 50% of workers report high daily stress.
Half the workforce is stressed every single day, so it's highly productive but highly anxious.
Exactly. Then you cross the Atlantic to Europe. They have the lowest engagement in the entire world, sitting at 12%.
12%. That means the vast majority are functionally detached from their jobs.
Right. But their daily stress and anger levels are remarkably low because Europe has robust labor laws and cultural norms that fiercely protect personal time. So they have structural boundaries preventing burnout.
Which is a stark contrast to post-Soviet Eurasia.
Very stark. In post-Soviet Eurasia, engagement is low, but workers report high daily anger, around 30%, and terrible job market confidence at 36%.
Yeah.
They feel financially trapped.
That sounds like a very combustible environment for implementing disruptive technology.
It really is. But then look at sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Despite global instability, they have high job market optimism, 58% and 64% respectively.
So they're forward-looking, likely much more receptive to learning new tech skills.
Right, which brings us to East Asia. And this is the most concerning region emotionally. They report the lowest thriving globally at just 16% and the highest daily sadness at 36%.
Wow. Introducing the threat of AI automation into an environment already experiencing that level of profound sadness just seems incredibly risky.
It is.
So synthesizing all this global data, this fragmented picture, proves the AI productivity paradox isn't just a technical issue. We have a workforce scattered across these massive emotional extremes.
From the high-stress offices in North America to the detached hubs in Europe.
And the only way to successfully integrate this technology is through great managers who can absorb risk and coach their teams. But we've established those managers are exhausted, lonely, and managing huge teams. How do we close that gap?
Well, this raises an important question. The report hints at a fascinating, almost paradoxical solution. We know natural management talent is rare, and human managers lack the bandwidth to undergo rigorous training right now. So what if the solution is using AI to coach the managers?
Wait, instead of just using AI to write marketing copy, we use it to help a middle manager navigate human leadership.
Precisely. Imagine an AI system grounded in behavioral science. It could discreetly advise a team leader in real time. It could analyze workloads and say, hey, your lead engineer is showing early signs of burnout. Here is a framework for your one-on-one tomorrow.
It could provide the exact kind of empathetic coaching that the manager's own overloaded boss doesn't have the time to give. It fundamentally scales good management.
Yes. Technology only amplifies the existing organizational culture. If you have a supported management layer, AI amplifies productivity. If you have burnt-out managers, AI just amplifies the chaos.
We started this journey looking at billions of dollars wasted on AI because leadership forgot the human element. The irony is that the ultimate value of AI might not be replacing human labor, but repairing the human management structures that are falling apart.
The human element is still the most critical variable.
For everyone listening, I want you to take a hard look at your own workplace. If you are a leader, you have to look past the software and check in on your middle managers. Are you giving them the resources to actually lead, or are you forcing them to play traffic cop?
And if you're an employee, recognize the structural reasons behind the chaos you might be feeling. It's not a personal failure. It's an organizational bottleneck.
Absolutely.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on that idea of AI coaching managers. If AI continues to advance in empathetic communication and human managers just continue to burn out, will we eventually reach a point where an employee would rather be managed by a perfectly calibrated, endlessly patient AI algorithm than a stressed, lonely human being?
Oh, wow. The perfectly empathetic, never exhausted AI boss. That is definitely something to think about the next time your human manager sends you a frantic email at 11 at night.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Gallup 2026 Global Workplace Report. As a quick reminder, if you want to keep exploring the realities of the modern workplace, make sure to subscribe to the Contrarian HR on Substack, Spotify, YouTube, and TikTok. Take care and keep questioning the workplace around you.